Okay, welcome back to the Property Podcast, episode 3. I'm David Pyle.
And I'm Kirk Walper.
We're both local realtors here in Qualicum Beach and Parksville.
Yes.
And we're just here to talk about real estate and other fun stuff, but mostly real estate.
Yeah, you bet. So we just came through Canada Day.
Yes.
How was your weekend?
It was good. I wasn't actually working this weekend, which was nice. But it is so busy. The tourists are here.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I love living in a place where people come on vacation. But like just driving through town, and
Yeah.
I went to go and get a Starbucks, and we parked up in the car. Let's go Starbucks, and I forgot it was the parade.
Oh,
And then
Yeah,
I was
the
like,
Canada
I was
Day
just,
parade.
why is everyone sat on the side of the road? I was like, oh no, and it was too late at that point.
You
I
got
was just
stuck.
I was just like, yeah, that was terrible. But yeah, I like living in a nice place. But
Yeah.
it is frustrating. You have to just allow extra time.
right. So
get
instead of
everywhere.
5 minutes to get anywhere, it's
Yeah.
like 10 or 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially when you're scheduling houses.
Right.
Right.
Oh, shit. I didn't plan for traffic today.
didn't
I'm
plan.
showing 10, I'm showing these 10 houses.
Yeah. One of the most stressful jobs as a
we'll see
realtor
how that goes.
sometimes. Like if you're working with new clients and you don't know how long they take to view a house, because some people are like in, out, done.
Yeah.
And then other people spend half an hour, and you're trying to schedule new clients. They want to see 8 houses.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, yeah, you can overlap them and do it, but until you know them, it can be stressful.
Yeah, but the worst thing is sometimes people, they walk into the house and they're like, yeah, we don't like it. And they're like, but let me take a look around. And
Yeah.
then they look through every single room and closet and down in the crawl space. I'm like, I thought you didn't like it. Yeah, we don't, but we like the information.
While we're here, we may as
Yeah.
well take a look.
And then they go outside and stand in front and ask about how old the roof is for 5 minutes,
Yeah.
right? And they're not going to buy it anyways, but that happens. That's
I had
part
a
of the
guy who was like, I think he was about 140, I'm thinking. And he bought his own ladder because he wanted to go in the crawl space.
Of course.
And he went down into the crawl space. I was scared he was going to break 2 hips even getting
Yeah.
down the ladder. And he's crawling around down there. Yeah, not fun.
All right. Well, we see it all. So let's get into our topics. The first one is, well, and this comes up quite a bit. People want to know, well, what's the difference between a bedroom and a den?
Yes.
Or when can we call it a bedroom? When do we call it a den? What's your take on that?
I always think like with a house, if it needs to have a closet,
Yes.
a window,
Right?
and a door.
Okay.
Those 3 things, I think it could be a bedroom.
Could be a bedroom.
I went to a listing a short while ago, and it said it was a bedroom,
Yeah.
and it didn't even have a door. It was an archway, and it was it could be a bedroom, but it
Right.
was actually listed as a bedroom. But
Well-
even sometimes when I went to one and they'd stolen room out of the garage, there was no closet. It was so you had a garage door into the bedroom, so living room
Yeah.
into the stolen room from the garage with a fire door in there and they called it a bedroom, and there was no closet, and there was a water heater in there.
Yeah. Well, I think, and why a lot of times you'll see a realtor that will be just making a room a bedroom, because they know that when people do their search criteria,
Yep.
if they're getting listings sent to them, if they're searching,
Yeah.
that they're going to put in 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
Yeah.
And so they just call a room a bedroom, which isn't right. I mean,
You know what we call those people? Bad realtors. Bad
there are some of them.
realtors.
Well, because the Vancouver Island Real Estate Board does have standards for what classifies as a bedroom. And a couple of years ago, they actually took away the requirement of a closet, because they said you could move in like a wardrobe or
You
something
could,
like
you
that.
could.
But it does, in houses, it does need to have a window that allows egress so that you could fit through and escape. And it does, yeah, it needs to be, but it doesn't have to have a closet. So.
Yeah, I kind of see that, especially with the wardrobes, but I like to
But
see
it's
a closet.
deceiving, because if you're there and you're showing a property and someone says specifically they want 3 bedrooms, and then you go there and it's more like 2 and a den, they're kind of disappointed, right?
Yeah, they are just, and that's the listing realtor is setting people up for disappointment.
Exactly.
And then you're not
Yeah.
going to sell it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, market it for what it is.
Well, what about this? So you get a house, it's got a den with no window, but it has a skylight.
Right, you just put your least favorite child in that room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Too funny. The other question that we get here, especially BC is different than other provinces, but we have the option on completion to do the conveyancing of either a notary or a lawyer.
yes.
Why would you choose one over the other? Yeah.
I always say to my clients, sometimes there's a small price benefit from having a notary. You might save a couple of $100, but it's not very much. It's pretty much the same cost between a notary and a lawyer. If there's an issue at closing, the notary is going to go, hey, you probably should get a lawyer to look at that, and then you're going to have to go and find a lawyer. But if you already have a lawyer handling the transaction, then they're already there and on board and ready to help.
Yes.
That's kind of how I explain it.
Right.
I mean, I use notaries personally. And I suppose it depends on the transaction too. Like you can tell sometimes if there's any red flags, you can always point them in the direction of a lawyer.
Definitely, if there's some complexity to it, especially when you're dealing with estate sales or anybody that's having some legal issues, or if there's financial issues that we're getting sorted out, then 100% you want to go to a lawyer.
Yeah.
But yeah, notary can be a little bit cheaper. I mean, we're fortunate, especially like Parksville, Qualicum, we have some excellent notaries.
There's some great people.
They do a great job. Great lawyers as well. The one thing is to note that all lawyers are notaries, but notaries are not lawyers. So the notary, can't cross that line towards giving legal advice, doing legal things. But as far as just conveyancing, doing the completion, they both do the same thing. And in a lot of cases, especially when you've got someone with a cash purchase, there's no mortgage financing, and it's just a simple transaction. Then notary is just fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one is so deposit amount. So when someone's writing an offer on a home, it's on the buyer side. We're putting in the contract, how much the deposit is.
And we're talking deposit, not down payment. Down payment is separate. This is just the deposit that goes with the offer, gets held in trust until completion.
Yeah, and the deposits normally is fully refundable back to the buyer up and until they remove conditions. Once they remove conditions, then they're committed in that.
Yeah.
So.
And then if they did back out after subject removed, that's the only time you would lose your deposit. Never happened to me. I've never lost anyone's deposit.
Yeah.
Has it ever happened to you? I hope it never happens to me.
No, well...
I've never had anyone walk away from a deal after subjects have been
removed.
I've
had that happen once.
Have you?
Yeah,
I don't want that.
But we there was red flags right from the start on that deal. So, I mean, it was unfortunate, but everybody wasn't surprised.
Yeah, and really what matters, I think, the deposit system is just some security. They're not going to walk away from the deal. That's what it is. Yeah. And if you've got first-time buyers, sometimes they may only have a certain amount of money. If they're getting money off family for the final down payment, or if someone's selling their house and buying up, and most of the equity is tied up in the house, and it's going to be tied up until closing, they may only have, say, on an $800,000 purchase, maybe they've only got $5,000 or $10,000 available, or it would clean out their savings until their house is sold. So every case is different, but up to $1 million, I say, if you've got 20 grand available and spare, then that should be sufficient for you not to walk away from the deal. And if we're in a competitive situation, then if you've got more available, then put down more, because it makes the offer look stronger.
I think it definitely can make a difference in some cases, the amount of the deposit. And typically when people ask me what's normal, or how much deposit do we have to give, and I'll say in a perfect world, you'd put 5% deposit. Yeah. But that probably only happens about 20% of the time. Otherwise, it's usually something less than that. Yeah. And the reason for it being less, as long as you have is a reason behind it, like you say, if their equity's tied up in their house, they're moving, they don't want to use up all their free cash and just have it sitting in trust. And a lot of times sellers are reasonable, they understand that, and they'll accept an offer with a lower deposit. But if someone's sitting there buying an $800,000 house, there's no financing condition, and they've got the $800,000 sitting in the bank, then why would they not put up a little bit more, right?
Exactly. I've had have you ever had some really low deposits offered before? I've had a $500, like $500 deposit on like a nearly $1 million deal, and I'm like, what's just a red flag about what's going on?
I think that when you put yourself in the seller's shoes with a super low deposit, and trying to buy a higher priced home, or if it's $1 million home, that is the buyer serious? That's the question. Like, does this person actually want to buy this house? Because if they can't scrape together more than $500, what's their ability to be able to complete on $1 million purchase? But I know they've happened. It happens, and people move forward and do that. But as long
people
as
like to keep hold of their money in their bank, they're like, well, I want to give as little as possible. Some people are just wired that way.
If you're going in with an offer that's strong in the price, the deposit isn't as big of an issue for most sellers. But if it's a lower priced offer, then they want to see that you've got some skin in the game, or it works to your benefit if you're a buyer in that situation, right? Now let's switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
Personal stories about real estate. I'm sure you've had some crazy things happen over the years. I know I have. What comes to mind?
Oh, my craziest story was, actually, start of the day, my wife and I had a day planned. We had a day off. We were going to go out, have lunch, do some shopping. It was just a day. And then it was like 9 in the morning. I get a phone call out of the blue from this lady. Let's call her Mrs. Crazy. She said, hey, I'm in town. I'm a cash buyer. I need to buy somewhere. This other realtor let me down, and I want to look at these sort of 8 places today, and I want to buy something. And I'm like, honey, we're not going out. Like, I'm going to go show some houses. And she was like, okay. She's great. She knows. So I line up the showings.
Your wife was okay with that?
My wife was okay with it. Yeah, she knows me. And so I line up the showings, and I pick this lady up, and she seems perfectly reasonable. I pick her up in my car, and she was in a hotel. Okay. I pick her up in my car. She's about 60, I think.
Okay.
I show her houses, no red flags at all, and then we get about sort of 6 houses in, and she's like, I really like this one, and I'd like to buy it. And I was like, okay.
Jackpot.
Okay, so I talk about, hey, we're going to write an offer. I need some ID from you as well. Mm-hmm. And then she pulled out like a paper ID, like she didn't have photo ID, and I'm like, the first little red flag, first one. And then I'm like, okay, we can discuss this. I need to call my broker and find out how we do this. Maybe if you've got your passport or something else, we'll do this afterwards. Okay, and we start talking about possession dates and offers. And she's like, well, I'd like to buy it today, and I'd like to stay here.
Oh,
and I'm like, okay, that's not really how this would work. But she was like, well, I would like to stay here from now. It's empty. The place is vacant.
Of course.
So I'd like to buy it. I was like, well, there needs time to, I explain that you can't do that. And she's like, well, can I just stay at your office then? I was like, what do you mean stay at my... And it just starts getting crazier and crazier. And then I called the other realtor that she said let her down. So a bit of red flag. She's walking around the house. I called the other realtor that had let her down. I'm like, hey, I'm just showing a house with, and I say her name. And she was like, oh, she within earshot of you? And I'm like, no. She's like, oh, she's crazy. And I'm like, oh, no. So I was like, look, we have to leave the house. And she refused to leave. And then she started crying.
Oh, no.
And then at this point, I don't want her like back in my car, right? And I'm just like, what do I do? So I ended up calling the cops.
Oh, really?
I called it for I did actually, I managed to like lock, like usher her out the house, like, come on, let's go outside and talk, and locked everything so she couldn't go back in. And then she refused to leave the property, and she started crying and say, what is she supposed to do at this hour? Because she's got nowhere to stay that night. And I'm like, a minute ago, you're a cash buyer with, $1 million in the bank, and now you've got nowhere to stay. I think she just
stay at your house.
I think, yeah. And so I called the cops and I said, look, I've got this woman here. She was refusing to leave the property, and I need kind of a welfare check, and I don't want to get her back in my vehicle at this point. So they came.
They came,
They did come, and I left.
Oh, man.
Hurriedly.
Okay, well, that's a good story.
And then I found out that she's done this to about 10 local realtors, and she's still around.
Yeah. Well, I remember after that happened that, the name of the person got circulated through the office in case anybody else came across. But
yes.
Okay, that's a very good story.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Crazy people.
So I have one also that involved the police. Mm-hmm. The very first property that I ever sold, and this was right at the beginning, and I clearly, as brand new realtor, I didn't know anything yet. I was learning. So I get these new clients, first time buyers, find them the right property, we buy it, we get it unconditional, and it comes to move-in day. And I didn't know what was normal for this. The other agent said, go pick up the keys at the office, all good to go. The lawyers had everything finished, sale had completed. And so we get to the property, and I think I handed them the keys, and we walk up and they open the front door, and the home is full of the furniture from the seller. and that, is not expected. The other realtor didn't know about that. We go in there, and these buyer clients are like jackpot, because the seller had really nice stuff.
Free stuff.
Big screen TV, leather couch. The seller was a single guy, and he worked up in northern Alberta, had really nice stuff, big stereo system, everything. And all of the personal, there was no clothing or anything left in the house. It was just all the really nice furniture. And so they claim it as their own. And so anyways, I call the other agent and say, hey, look, like the house is still full of stuff. And agent doesn't know anything about it, can't get a hold of the seller. In the meantime, the buyers get all the locks changed, and they moved their stuff in, and they're using his stuff. And so 2 days later, the guy, and anyways, he was stuck in a work camp. There was no cell service, and he got delayed in coming back to move the stuff out. Well, he shows up at the door, and the buyers are like, "Thank you very much, sir, but your stuff is now our stuff."
Oh my
And
God.
so he calls the police, and the police call me. I had no idea. I didn't know if it was theirs or not. Anyways, at the end, they had to give up his stuff because you can't just claim someone. There's like a 30-day period, I think, if they have to leave it, and then it becomes yours. But anyways, police came and they got it all sorted out. But yeah, it was a crazy experience. They were calling me. I didn't know what was going on, and I was like, if this is the way that this goes, it was my very first deal. But fortunately, I haven't had to call the police since then.
If someone knocked on the door and said, "Hey, man, I left my stuff here," I don't think I'd be able to just say, "Oh, tough, it's mine
that's
now."
what they did. They had like a standoff, and they weren't going to let him in until the police came. So
It's crazy.
yeah, there's some crazy things that happen in this business. I mean, that was
Imagine if they sold it all, just put it all on Facebook Marketplace first day.
Pocket all the money. Well, people do crazy things sometimes, and nothing surprises me anymore when something happens. I'm just like, oh, that's a new one. But
yeah, I'm always very careful now when I get the phone calls out the blue to just Google the people and make sure that
drop what you're doing and go do it. It's like, we need to buy a house now.
yes,
Yeah, that's not normal.
that's not normal.
No.
And I ruined the whole day out.
Right.
No
But
doubt.
you got a good story, so hey.
Yeah, exactly. That was better.
It's worth it. Well, I think that's about it for this time.
I think so. Anything else?
We've covered
Anything
quite a
else?
bit.
Yeah, I can't think of it. I can't think of anything else. I can't. My brain is empty. We
read
can
it
cut
all
that
out.
bit out. We can cut that bit out. I think
That's
we've
it.
covered everything in real estate.
a
I
wrap.
think, we
Okay,
should
well-
open our own real estate school.
Yes. Okay, well, sir, until next time, cheers.
Cheers.
That's it. Thanks again for watching.